Joining us now is Rob Clapper. He's the president of the Prince William County Chamber of Commerce.
My guy.
Rob Clapper, great to have you with us. We're very much chagrined that we go through another session with what now appears to be no comprehensive transportation plan, because in this state, this has been going on for 3 decades.
Well, first of all, good morning, John. Good morning, Steve. And I am part of that piece that has a 2-hour delay for schools and got a little white stuff on the ground. So transportation takes on a whole new meaning this morning.
Absolutely.
Out in Prince William County. But you're absolutely right. It's the same verse, same chapter, same song that we've been singing for years, and it seems that in a time in a year that we thought was going to be the right time to finally move the needle and get some movement on transportation, we've hit a couple stumbling blocks. But I am still optimistic. We still, fortunately, have one opportunity left as the House bill has crossed over and is being looked at by the Senate, and even as earlier this week, Senator Saslaw, the minority leader in the Senate, even made a comment that he believes some form of a transportation bill and a compromise could be reached. So there is still hope, still optimism, but you know, this isn't it's not an issue for just certain communities. It's not a social issue. It's an economic issue, and it needs real answers and real leadership.
Well, you know, Ron, this has been going on, as we said, for 3 decades, and you very eloquently summed it up by saying, you know, same song, same verse, same hymnal, same stuff. At the end of the day, no plan. I have no confidence that anything is going to get done. And so the frustration of the average person, if you're in Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads, and you have to go through this every single day, and now we're looking at another session with no comprehensive solving of this problem. And, you know, the point that I've been making that I want to get you to comment on, Rob, is, you know, everybody focuses on our particular issue when you're sitting there in traffic, and it's billions of dollars. We all understand that. Study just came out from Texas A&M saying that the cost to the individual is off the charts. My concern is, and I want to get your thoughts on this, look, if we don't solve this, Rob, eventually companies are not going to relocate in the state. The economy is going to dry up, and Virginia is going to be on the verge of economic catastrophe. I mean, I think that's eventually what will happen if we don't solve this, right?
Well, it's already happening, actually, in a much more controlled way. But that same study showed that we're losing roughly 1,400 jobs every year because of transportation issues in Northern Virginia alone. You combine that with your point, businesses make location decisions as a considerable part of a combination of factors in terms of locating and possibly relocating. And many companies who have decided against relocating to Northern Virginia continually cite congestion issues as a top reason for the decision. So when you look at that, so there is your economic argument, not to mention what you had already mentioned, roughly $1,400 a year per driver at a cost. But what's more alarming is the quality of life piece. That same study showed 67 hours of delay per year. That's not per decade or per lifetime. That's 3 days of delays a year for the residents and the citizens of Northern Virginia.
It's incredible.
And that's a quality of life piece that companies internationally and across our nation look at as, well, why am I going to invest the money first into relocating, moving my workforce to have to battle these quality of life issues. So you combine those numbers, throw those things in, and then you put in, as you talked about, the fact is Virginia is approaching a crisis mode in its transportation its transportation woes. And if we don't act, it will set Virginia back. It'll jeopardize our position as a top state for business, and ultimately it's going to have a huge crippling effect on our quality of life.
Common Sense News Time coming up on 7:19 here on the John Frederick Show. Editorial Director Steve Ray along with John, and we're speaking to the president of the Prince William County Chamber of Commerce, Rob Clapper, on this very key transportation issue. Now, beyond here in Northern Virginia, where we know that the widening and the extension of the HOV lanes on 95 runs straight through your county there in Prince William County, and beyond Hampton Roads, we're also talking about the infrastructure, the bridges and the tunnels and the other overpass and abutment items that have to be taken care of around the state. And this is particularly key for our new listeners in Lynchburg and Roanoke and down in Southwest Virginia who may not have the delays, but certainly have the quality of life and business development issues. Now, in your dealings with the House of Delegate members who are a part of the Business Development Caucus, what type of feedback are you getting from them as far as how this will impact the state when it comes to business?
Well, I mean, I think it already shows that, whether you're looking at the poll from Texas A&M or the report from Texas A&M, you're looking at the recent poll that came out that showed overwhelmingly, I think it was 83% of Virginians who took part in the poll showed that transportation and a long-term funding plan for transportation was the top priority that they were concerned about. And so when you look at that from a business development standpoint, whether it's existing industry and looking at growing jobs within with companies that are already here or looking to recruit, it is a significant deciding factor. And if we're not careful, we're going to continue to slide and take ourselves out of the conversation for further growth. I would also offer that, the two critical components you talked about, the funding deficits in bridges and roads and maintenance. If we do not act and look at this final funding reform package that is coming across from the House into the Senate, that we need to address two critical components: how to fill the maintenance gap with a biennium. We need to fix the structural deficit that exists in the transportation fund for maintenance to stop the drain, and ultimately we've got to provide new revenue above the structural deficit for new construction. And then when you look at the safety issues, you can't begin to address safety issues if you're robbing Peter to pay Paul on the maintenance side. So, I mean, it's a comprehensive package, and that's why we thought and were cautiously optimistic that the governor's package was bold, that it wasn't going to have, there were going to be parts in it that not everybody agreed with. But at the end, it hit all of the key areas to begin to address safety and bridges.
Rob, before we run out of time, I want to make sure we get this in. Is there a possibility that because some people downstate obviously have the argument that they don't want to pay for Northern Virginia and Hampton Road expansion for transportation, are there any regional transportation funding measures in this bill that may go through?
Well, I believe that there are, specifically even in our area, because the bill ultimately affects transport of goods and safety issues with bridges. And one part of that the governor has laid out was a potential north-south corridor connection from Dulles through Prince William down, and that ultimately expands, the transportation of goods from a major international airport down. And so I do believe that was one of, I believe, 7 projects that were laid out. So the package is comprehensive. It does begin to look at that and continue to make us more competitive and keep us in the economic development game.
Rob Clapper, the president of the Prince William County Chamber of Commerce, I can't thank you enough. I hope to see you out at Pfister Stadium after April 5th, and we'll keep an eye on this and keep our fingers crossed today. John will have a little bit of opining to do after the break, but we thank you for the time, Rob. We appreciate it, as always.
Thank you. Y'all have a good weekend.